A programmer discovers a hidden glitch in the simulation we live in and decides to reset the entire universe. But the deeper he goes, the more reality begins to break around him until he can no longer tell if he is fixing the system or destroying it. Brendan, a skilled game developer who talks about a rat placed inside a maze. At first, the rat struggles and takes a long time to find the exit. It moves around randomly, trying different paths without understanding the layout. However, after several attempts, the rat begins to remember the correct turns and eventually reaches the exit much faster. Brendan connects this idea to video games as, according to him, the players behave in a similar way. When someone plays the same game level repeatedly, they slowly recognize patterns, remember obstacles, and improve their decisions. Over time, their brain adapts and they complete the stage more quickly. The scene changes and we see Brendan is spending a peaceful day at the beach with his wife Claire and their young daughter Sam. Sam happily holds a small toy that she loves very much and refuses to let go of. The three of them share a meal together, then lie under the sun and eventually fall asleep. After some time passes, Sam begins playing nearby, digging through the sand with curiosity. She becomes interested in collecting seashells scattered along the shore. Before she leaves, Claire reminds her to stay near and not go into the water.
Where are you going?
We're just going to find shells.
Okay, just stay where we can see you.
My precious Sam.
According to Brendan, becoming a parent gives life a powerful sense of purpose and meaning. He spends many joyful evenings with Sam at home. They watch Star Wars together, play board games like Monopoly, and end each night with Brendan reading her a bedtime story. While playing in the sand, Sam discovers a beautiful shell. At that moment, she notices her favorite toy, named George, slowly drifts away in the water after being pulled by a wave. Confused and worried, she glances back toward her parents and then runs toward the ocean, hoping to grab it before it disappears. However, the moment turns into a tragedy, and the loss devastates the family. A large funeral takes place, filled with friends and relatives who come to show support. When everyone eventually leaves, Brendan and Claire remain alone with their grief. The situation feels unreal to them, as if their minds refuse to accept what happened.
It doesn't feel real.
I know exactly what you mean.
As time passes, Claire tries to begin the difficult process of moving forward. She decides to remove Sam's belongings from the house because the memories are too painful. Brendan, however, cannot bring himself to do that yet. While organizing Sam's things, he discovers a familiar book from her room. It is the Berenstain Bears story that he used to read to her every night before bed. Later that night, Brendan suddenly hears a strange noise inside the house. Alarmed, he grabs a baseball bat and quietly walks toward the kitchen to investigate. There he discovers his brother-in-law Matt, who is taking food from the refrigerator. The tension fades, and the two men spend some time talking. During the conversation, Matt mentions that he has recently started seeing someone new. Meanwhile, Brendan brings up something that has been bothering him. He recalls the book title being spelled Berenstain Bears, yet the book he found now clearly reads Berenstain Bears.
What? Stain. Berenstain. Huh. It's weird, right?
Later, Brendan searches the internet and discovers a concept known as the Mandela Effect, where large groups of people remember certain things differently from how they actually appear. The following day, Brendan works quietly in the kitchen while Claire prepares orders for her clients. As he looks around the room, he notices a photograph hanging nearby. The image catches his attention, and he asks Claire about where it was taken. She explains that the picture comes from a visit to Griffith Observatory. Brendan reacts with confusion because he strongly remembers the photo being taken at the Pacific Science Center instead. Claire grows irritated by the disagreement.
Remember Sam's facial
Okay,
expression?
Brendan, please, I need space. I'm sorry,
No.
And Brendan eventually leaves the kitchen. After that, Brendan sits beside Matt and begins showing what he discovered online about the Mandela Effect. He explains how many people remember certain things differently from how they actually appear. However, Matt does not treat the idea seriously. He believes Brendan is simply dealing with a false memory caused by stress and grief. Brendan attempts to convince him that many people share the same experience, but Matt remains doubtful and brushes the theory aside. Later that night, Brendan decides to spend more time researching the Mandela Effect online. During his research, he discovers several unusual explanations that attempt to describe why people remember things differently. One theory attracts his attention more than the others. Some researchers believe the differences may come from the existence of parallel universes. According to this concept, multiple versions of reality may exist side by side. Each universe could have small variations, and sometimes memories from one reality might overlap with another. Later, Brendan meets Matt again, who explains that he recently spoke with a neurologist friend. According to him, fake memories can sometimes occur when the brain processes emotional shock. Matt believes Brendan may be experiencing confusion caused by stress. However, Brendan insists that the problem is not about memory, but about reality itself. In his view, the strange differences might prove that parallel universes truly exist, and perhaps the world around them is not real.
I'm talking about reality. Maybe none of this is real.
That evening, Brendan and Claire sit together for dinner, hoping to regain some sense of normal life. Claire eventually reveals that she already spoke with Matt and learned about Brendan's theories. She encourages Brendan to explain everything clearly. Brendan asks Claire to remember a detail about the Monopoly board game that he often played with Sam. Claire remembers the character wearing a monocle over one eye. Brendan then shows her the actual Monopoly image. When Claire looks at the character's face, she notices the monocle is missing. The discovery leaves her visibly confused because she remembers it being there. After that, Brendan reminds Claire about the Curious George toy that Sam used to play with almost every day. Claire remembers the character and believes the monkey always had a tail. However, when Brendan shows her an official picture of Curious George, the character does not have a tail at all. The difference unsettles her, yet she quickly tries to dismiss the idea. Claire believes Brendan is harming himself by believing strange theories found on the internet.
What does this have to do with anything?
Do you remember after the funeral?
Please do not interrupt me. All this shit, it's just gonna hold us back.
Brendan, however, becomes even more convinced. He believes if multiple universes truly exist, then perhaps in another version of reality, their daughter Sam might still be alive. Brendan reminds Claire that both of them once felt the world seemed unreal after Sam's death, as if something had shifted. Despite his explanation, Claire becomes increasingly frustrated. She admits that she wants their life to feel happy again, but Brendan's obsession is preventing them from healing. Soon afterward, they meet Matt and his boyfriend during a small outing. Matt apologizes to Brendan for sharing their earlier conversation with Claire. That same night, Brendan continues digging through online information with growing determination. During his research, he learns about a scientist named Dr. Roland Fuchs, who once conducted studies related to the multiverse theory. The discovery immediately captures Brendan's attention. However, when he attempts to watch the scientist's lectures, he notices the recordings are corrupted for unknown reasons. After many hours of searching, Brendan finally discovers one video that seems playable. Brendan spends a long time decoding the data and eventually manages to make the video run. When the recording begins, Dr. Roland appears on the screen. According to his research, the world humans experience every day may not actually be real. He presents a theory that reality is part of a giant virtual simulation created through binary code made of zeros and ones. The explanation sounds similar to a massive computer program running an artificial universe. Brendan watches carefully, trying to understand every detail. Unfortunately, before Dr. Roland can reveal more information, the file suddenly glitches and becomes corrupted like the others. Even though the video stops early, Brendan feels convinced he has discovered something important. In his mind, the broken recordings mean he is getting closer to a hidden truth. Determined to continue, he decides to send a video message directly to Dr. Roland, explaining his situation.
I thought making a video would be the best way to explain myself.
The next morning, Brendan attempts to meet Dr. Roland in person. When he finally approaches him, Roland initially does not recognize him at all. After a moment of confusion, he eventually remembers that Brendan had sent him a message earlier. Brendan requests a few minutes to discuss his ideas, but Roland explains that he is running late. Before leaving, he briefly expresses sympathy for Sam's death, and then continues on his way. Later that night, Brendan hears a strange voice echoing somewhere nearby. The sound feels real, but when he looks around the room, there is nobody there. The moment unsettles him deeply. Claire notices his uneasy behavior and becomes concerned. She gently suggests that he should visit a grief consultant who might help him cope with the loss of their daughter. Surprisingly, Brendan quietly accepts the suggestion. Early the following morning, Brendan goes directly to the home of Dr. Roland. Standing outside the house, he requests just a few minutes to talk. Roland appears irritated by the unexpected visit, but eventually allows him inside after some hesitation.
I began to notice these changes, these things. I'm losing my mind. What do I believe? Have you heard of the Mandela Effect?
Once inside the house, Brendan begins explaining his situation from the beginning. He describes his job as a game developer and compares the world to a video game system. Then he reveals everything that has been happening, including the strange memory differences and the research about parallel realities. Roland listens carefully and begins discussing the concept of false memories. However, he also acknowledges that sometimes small clues can appear, almost like breadcrumbs leading toward a larger truth. He asks Brendan what he truly hopes to discover. Brendan answers that he wants to understand the truth about reality.
Something open. Do you think it's the simulation?
What is it you're looking for exactly?
I'm looking for what's real.
The two men eventually step outside and continue their discussion while walking. Roland then reveals a deeper version of his theory. According to him, humanity may not live in a natural universe at all. Instead, the entire world could exist inside a virtual simulation controlled by advanced technology. He explains that the simulation functions through a system called procedural generation. This system works based on observation. In simple terms, objects and surroundings only appear when someone actually looks at them, just like certain video games that generate the world as players explore it. After hearing this explanation, Brendan becomes even more curious. He wonders why such a massive simulation would ever be created in the first place. Roland admits that he does not fully understand the purpose behind it. However, he shares another unusual possibility. In his opinion, Brendan himself might not fully belong to the simulation. Instead, he could be similar to a computer glitch, an unexpected error inside the system that the program is constantly trying to correct. Roland describes the only possible way to prove the simulation might be to overload the system and force it to crash. If the simulation fails, the supercomputer running it could restart and fix whatever error exists inside the program. Brendan quickly realizes that creating such a crash would require enormous computing power. Roland responds by revealing that he has access to an extremely advanced quantum computer located inside a nearby research facility. Roland leads Brendan into a secure building and brings him into a large room. Inside the room, Brendan sees the massive quantum computer and immediately feels amazed by the complex system. Roland demonstrates how Brendan's program could run on the computer system. Just then, another man suddenly enters the room and interrupts them. Roland attempts to explain the situation, but the man grows angry the moment Brendan tries to speak. Later outside, Brendan feels anxious and still feels uncertain about the entire plan. He wonders if crashing the simulation could really work. Roland responds by questioning what makes Brendan believe such an experiment would bring his daughter back. Brendan admits that he does not truly know if it will change anything. That night, Brendan lies in bed beside Claire when he hears Sam's voice calling from somewhere in the house. He quickly walks to Sam's bedroom and looks inside. For a brief moment, he sees Sam standing there as if nothing ever happened. Before he can react, the image fades and disappears. Claire soon enters the room and gently calms him down, believing he had a nightmare. Later, Brendan experiences a strange dreamlike sequence. In the vision, he suddenly wakes up inside his car without remembering how he arrived there. A loud noise begins echoing in his head, making him dizzy and confused.
Very real, hot experiments deal with real particles until they're observed.
The scene changes again, and he wakes up in his bed as if nothing happened. This time he sees Claire and Sam together walking toward the bathroom to brush their teeth. Brendan follows them, but when he reaches the bathroom, he only finds Claire standing there alone. He begins searching for Sam in panic until Claire encourages him to breathe slowly and relax.
What happened? What did you see? You have to breathe.
The following day, Brendan drives through the city while trying to contact Dr. Roland again. He leaves a message requesting a call back, hoping to continue their conversation about the simulation theory. Afterward, he returns to researching the topic online and becomes convinced that without access to the quantum computer, he cannot continue the experiment. Later that night, while Brendan sleeps beside Claire, Sam suddenly walks into their bedroom and climbs into the bed between them. She explains that she had a nightmare and wants comfort.
I had a nightmare.
Brendan feels shocked and confused, but still hugs his daughter tightly along with Claire. The next morning, Brendan wakes up and finds the bed empty. Unsure if the moment was real, he walks outside and sees Sam sitting peacefully nearby. His confusion grows and he asks Claire if she can see their daughter, but Claire does not understand why he is asking such a question.
Sam.
Yeah. Oh, you had a bad dream.
At the same moment, Matt shows up and everything seems normal. Feeling overwhelmed, Brendan calls different people to check, and every conversation tells him nothing happened and Sam was there. Eventually, he tries contacting Dr. Roland again, but fails. Brendan slowly forms a new belief in his mind. Perhaps the simulation system has already corrected the error, restoring the world to the way it should be. Even though part of him feels something is still wrong, the return of his daughter feels like a miracle he does not want to lose. For a while, Brendan chooses to enjoy life with his family again. One night, Claire suddenly wakes up screaming and rushes out of the bedroom in panic. Brendan quickly follows her and manages to calm her down while Sam watches from the hallway. After guiding Claire back to bed, Brendan hopes the moment was only a nightmare. The next morning, Claire remembers nothing and reassures him that she feels perfectly fine. Later that day, Brendan drives Sam to school. Her teacher happily mentions that Sam is doing well and getting along with other students. The comment makes Brendan feel relieved. When he returns home, however, he notices something burning in the kitchen. An eggplant dish sits on the stove with smoke filling the room, forcing Brendan to turn off the fire alarm. He then finds Claire nearby looking emotionally unstable. Brendan comforts her while trying to understand what is happening. A few days later, the family goes out together to paint pottery bowls at a small shop. Brendan asks Sam what color he should use for his bowl, and she suggests orange. Claire, however, encourages him to paint it brown instead. During the moment, Brendan notices a crack forming along the bowl's surface. Deciding to follow Sam's suggestion, he prepares to paint it orange. Suddenly, Claire grabs the bowl and smashes it on the table. Her behavior quickly becomes more aggressive as she begins breaking several other bowls nearby. Brendan rushes to stop her while other people watch in shock. Realizing the situation is out of control, he tells Sam they need to leave after paying for the damage. Later, Matt arrives at their house, and Brendan explains that Claire has just experienced a disturbing episode. While Matt stays with Claire, Brendan spends some quiet time with Sam, who begins playing the piano in the living room. However, the peaceful moment does not last long. Claire suddenly walks in and reacts strangely, insisting that Sam should not even be there. Brendan quickly tries to calm her and leads her into the room before things escalate again. Matt stays with Sam while Brendan steps outside the house for a while, needing time to think about the frightening changes happening around them. Late that night, Brendan drives to the house of Dr. Roland Fuchs, hoping to meet him. When he knocks on the door, a woman named Nadine opens it instead. She informs Brendan that Roland is no longer alive. The statement immediately shocks him. Trying to understand what happened, Brendan asks about Roland's death. Nadine explains that Roland's research had brought him years of frustration and disappointment. According to her, the weight of his work slowly consumed him. During the conversation, Nadine mentions that Roland died almost 2 months ago. Hearing this leaves Brendan confused. In his memory, the meeting with Roland happened recently, not months earlier. As he stands there processing the situation, Brendan notices the glass he is holding slowly begins cracking. At that moment, Brendan realizes he may have shifted into yet another universe. Panic quickly overwhelms him, and he rushes back to his car before driving away. After returning home, Brendan immediately begins researching again. This time, he works with greater urgency because he believes reality itself may be unstable. He copies the computer code he created onto a portable drive. Once the transfer finishes, he records a final video message. In the recording, Brendan explains that he does not know if anyone will ever watch it. However, if someone eventually finds the message, he wants Claire and Sam to understand that everything he did was to find the truth. After finishing the recording, he leaves the message behind and prepares to act. The next morning, Brendan travels to the same research facility where Roland once showed him the powerful quantum computer. He quietly enters the building and walks toward the room. Just as he approaches the room, Dr. Ronald's colleague notices him and warns that security will be contacted. Realizing he has no time left to argue, Brendan reacts quickly and knocks him unconscious. He uses his ID to enter the room. Inside the room, Brendan approaches the massive quantum computer that Roland had demonstrated earlier. He inserts the drive and uploads his program into the system. After activating the code, the computer begins producing unusual sounds, suggesting that the program is running. Unsure what will happen next, Brendan decides to leave the building before anyone discovers what he has done. While riding on a bus, something terrifying begins happening. People around him suddenly start to glitch without warning. One moment they are walking beside him, and the next they vanish like broken images inside a digital system. Just then, Brendan receives a phone call from Claire. She explains she saw another version of herself walking through the kitchen. The strange moment terrifies her, and she urges Brendan to come home immediately. Brendan quickly gets off the bus and rushes back toward the house as fast as he can. When he arrives, he calls out for Claire. Meanwhile, Claire is running after Sam and holds her tightly. Brendan approaches them, but something is terribly wrong. As Brendan watches helplessly, Claire's face begins flickering like a digital glitch. While Brendan is holding Claire and Sam, the entire surrounding begins collapsing around him. The world breaks apart piece by piece, as if reality itself is shutting down. Suddenly, everything fades into complete darkness. After the blackout, a strange sequence appears. The entire universe seems to rewind step by step. From this sequence, it becomes clear that the simulation has crashed and the program is resetting itself. When the reset finishes, the story returns to the peaceful beach moment shown at the beginning. Brendan sits with Claire and Sam near the ocean on a warm, sunny day. The family eats together, relaxes under the sunlight, and eventually rests on the sand. After some time, Sam begins playing with the sand nearby and decides to find some shells. Before leaving, Claire reminds her to stay within their sight and avoid going near the water. This time, however, something changes. Brendan gently stops Sam before she walks away and takes her favorite toy, George, from her hands. Sam happily gives George to Brendan and then walks away to search for shells in the sand, quietly changing the moment that once led to tragedy.